All right, going right into this follow-up video here from the last video, which was how strong should you get? This is all about what determines how strong can you get in the first place, right? We got quite a few topics to cover here. We're going to start off with the things that you cannot control, which primarily is your genetics. And there's a few different factors that are layered in there. So this is quite a lot of things actually. And this, I guess, kind of determines your, what's a good way to word this? Like this is very powerful, is what I'm going to say. Genetics are very, very powerful. If you have someone that has elite genetics, they can train for like 6 months and get stronger than someone that has below average genetics can get in their entire life. So keep that in mind. Very powerful stimulus. But if you combine everything in this video together, that's how you wind up with like anomalies, right? Guys deadlifting 1,100 pounds and that sort of thing. All right. So genetics, a few different factors in here. Number one, neuromuscular efficiency. The heck are you talking about? Neuromuscular efficiency, in simple layman's terms, refers to how quickly you can recruit your motor units, which are the muscles and the nervous system, right? So they just link together. Nervous system talks to the muscles, tells them to do stuff. There is a speed at which that happens, and the faster that happens, the more weight you can lift, right? So if we look at a test like the standing vertical jump or the 40-yard dash, we're basically testing for neuromuscular efficiency because you cannot jump high in the air unless you can recruit your muscles very quickly in a short period of time. That's why they use that at the NFL Combine. And for reference, guys in the NFL Combine are jumping like 36 inches plus in the air, all the way up to like 45. I think the record is like 47 or something like that. And the average dude's jumping like 22 inches in the air. So it's a pretty darn big difference. It's like they're literally more than 1.5 times more athletic than the average person, which is very impressive. And at the very elites, if you have a 44-inch vertical jump, you're quite literally twice as athletic as the average person. So big deal right there, right? That means that in theory, the same person, if they had a 22 versus 44-inch vertical, they could get twice as strong. Quite profound. Big deal, right? Then we have the muscle, quote unquote, capacity, which is just like the amount of muscle that you can put on your frame. So part of that is your size, right? If you're a smaller guy, you're probably not going to put on as much muscle as a larger guy. You do have some trade-offs there to talk about in the next section. But there are also even, I think, genetic mutations. Like I'm pretty sure Eddie Hall has talked about how he has the ability to put on like almost endless muscle. He has like some little like gene going on there that you can put on more muscle than the average person. So muscle is obviously metabolically expensive, meaning that if your body puts on too much of it, it's going to burn too many calories and die. So we, obviously evolved from hunter-gatherers. So you don't want that from an evolutionary perspective. So most people, they can only put on so much muscle because then their body would just burn so many calories that they would basically not get enough food and they would die. So Eddie Hall is the opposite of that. So if you look at strongmen, right, most of them are, pretty darn tall, at least the ones that weigh like 400 pounds plus. And so he also weighed 400 pounds plus when he was competing, but at like 6'3". So he was like 5 to 6 inches shorter than the other guys that weighed what he weighed. So that's an example of that. Anthropometry, this next one right here. So like I said, short guys have the trade-off of anthropometry, which is your leverages essentially, right? If you're only 5 feet tall, you don't have to move the bar very far through any of these lifts, right? Look at Ed Cohen. The guy has just great leverages for all the lifts. That's going to help a lot. Another thing about the anthropometry is the actual leverages on the joints. So if you have like super long femurs, it's going to be difficult for you to squat because you have to lean way over. If you have super short femurs, it makes it a lot easier. If you have long arms, bench is more difficult. Short arms, it's easier. If you have short arms and you can get a big arch in your back, then it's just like cheating. If you have long arms, you can kind of compensate for that with getting a big arch in your back. But as you're kind of starting to figure out, probably from listening to this, the more of these you have, that's like, if you look at, freak athletes, people you think of that are at the top of their field, they probably have at least 2 of these, if not all of them. And those things all allow them to be at the top of their fields. And then the last thing is muscle insertions with little question marks. I'm not sure about this one, but it does make sense. So if you're not familiar, think of like the bicep, right? The muscle itself is attached to the skeleton via tendons. So just think about the one that crosses the elbow. The tendon crosses the elbow and then it inserts on the forearm, which probably can see my forearm that well, but it's like right up there. My elbow is right here. So if it inserts like right next to the elbow, then that's going to give you not very good leverage for pulling your forearm up like that, right? But if it inserted all the way down at the wrist, just think of like trying to open a door with a doorknob, right? If the doorknob was on the same side as the hinges, it would be really difficult to open the door, which is basically kind of like how your bicep inserts. But if the bicep inserted towards your wrist, that's like putting the doorknob on the other side of the door from the hinges, so it opens a lot easier. So theoretically, I think people have different, muscle insertions. Some people's tendons just insert further from the joint, which gives them better leverage with certain lifts. And I'm inclined to believe that because I've seen a few cases where it's like, more often with deadlift than anything else, where there's nothing about their, anthropometry that looks wonky, like pretty normal average dudes. Their athleticism is nothing to write home about. They don't have a lot of muscle, like they're not that heavy, but they just have like a crazy deadlift compared to the other lifts for some reason, where like to the order of like 150 to 200 pounds more. But yeah, that could be something to do with like the way the hamstrings insert, where they just have like a really favorable muscle insertion, and it gives them really good leverage in that lift. But yeah, something to think about. Let's get on to the things that you can control, starting with something that you can kind of control, which is the age that you start lifting. So a lot of people just like, they're not exposed to it, or it's not culturally relevant, and they don't get into it till later in life. So like, don't beat yourself up and be like, oh, I should have started earlier. That's not what I mean. But if you're, younger and you start lifting sooner, then obviously you're gonna get stronger because you have more time to put into it. You recover better when you're younger. You have more hormones, so you can bank up more consistent sessions, and that will allow you to get stronger over time. I think there's no surprise there. I still would say don't use that as an excuse. Like, you can start training in your 40s and then just keep on getting stronger into your 60s. Like, that still happens. It's not necessarily the amount of time for which you can get stronger, because you can keep getting stronger for, I'd say on average, like anecdotally, it looks like probably like a 20-year period, something like that, which is pretty impressive, honestly. So if you start training at 50, you can probably keep getting stronger until you're like 70 before it starts to drop off. But what was I going to say about age? If you start younger, your peak will be sooner, obviously. But yeah, just don't use it as an excuse to not train hard. But yeah, as far as consistency goes, very, very important, obviously. No surprise there. Be as consistent as possible. That's really it, right? Consistency in showing up to the gym, in diet, which we'll get to later. Because really, when it comes to training, it's unique in the sense that you can't just do like 10 times as much work in one session and then get like 10 times as much result. There's a cap to how much you can improve in one session. And you just kind of have to consistently hit that cap over time if you want to improve. You can't do a session where you like do 10 sets of squats and add, 20 pounds to your squat in that one session. It's still like you're only going to have to, you really can only increase your capacity 5 pounds at a time. So you just have to do that over time, be consistent, be patient. That's incredibly important. All right, then efficiency. Two different kinds of efficiency. One is with your form, so your mechanical efficiency with the lifts. It's very, very important. If you are squatting and you're not leaning over and you're getting forward on your toes and like falling over during the lift, that's very inefficient, and that is an extra variable you're throwing into your training that's going to limit how strong you can get. If you're overhead pressing and you're throwing the bar 3 inches in front of your shoulder, that is also going to mess with how strong you can get. So don't do that. So your form has to be consistent and efficient. And the more efficient it is, the stronger you can get. And the other thing is the quality of your programming. That also has to be efficient. So you don't want to have like a bunch of junk volume. You don't want to have a program that is too, that doesn't serve you, doesn't work essentially, right? Because you're just wasting time at the gym if you're not training. The best example is like if you're just not training in the first place, meaning that you're just doing, the same weight over and over, or there's not really a method to your sessions. You're not tracking your progress over time. You're not trying to improve over time. then that's going to waste time that you could be getting stronger. When it comes to the diet, very important. There's a few factors here. The first one is the quality of your diet in terms of getting enough recovery, so getting enough protein, getting enough carbs to fuel the session, getting enough calories in so that you're not feeling terrible and you have enough energy to go throughout the day. And then you can manipulate how strong you can get by how much weight you gain. And in turn, you can kind of manipulate how much muscle you carry as well by going through, like bulking and cutting cycles. You bulk up, you gain a bunch of muscle, and then you do like a small cut and lose some fat, make some more room to do it again. Keep doing that over time. Over a long period of time, you're going to gain a lot of muscle doing that, which is obviously going to make you stronger. And then you couple that with your, mechanical efficiency with your form. You got a recipe for getting quite strong there. But yeah, diet is pretty simple. There's not much else to say about it, but it's also incredibly important. And then not very important, but still makes a small difference, is supplements. Talking about actual supplements here, like creatine. You can drink whey protein if you have trouble getting protein in. Those are really the only two notable ones. I guess caffeine also, like to fuel your workout a little extra, take some caffeine in. But yeah, really like those are the big bang for your buck supplements. Anything outside of that is probably just expensive and unnecessary. Then we got capital supplements down here. Good old steroids, right? Again, I don't recommend that. I don't have any clients that do steroids. I don't do steroids. But if you want to, you can do it. Really, all steroids are going to do is kind of like enhance all of this, hence the term enhanced lifter. So you're going to just enhance the effects of all these, but with the trade-off of potentially not being great for your health. I don't know. You got to do more research on it. There's not that much. I mean, there's a lot more online about it now than there used to be, but it's just not something that interests me, so I haven't done much research into it. So talk to someone that does that. They can help you out with it if you're interested. Yeah, know what you're getting into if you're going to do that. But that's really it for the video. That's kind of the list of what determines how strong you can get. So go ahead and take your baseline, start doing some training, and see how far you get. And if you want help, hit me up. I'll give you a hand. All right, ask any questions down below, and that's basically it. I'll see you guys later.